Okay, we're going to get started today. I am going to take a few minutes to start on the subject of setting and achieving goals, and then we have two from here out. You should have gotten not an email, but maybe an email alert. But anyway, I noticed through Moodle that from now on we're going to have two student presentations per class, which is I've asked them to keep them short, somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute range, because we have so many presentations. But I want to go ahead and, while people are still gathering, and so our presenters aren't disrupted, I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit of a presentation first. And so I'm going to just go through a couple of videos, actually, and discuss these. These are some of those, specifically from a guy named Zig Ziglar. Some of you are perhaps familiar with the Ziglar. Ziglar is quite famous in America for starting off with mostly his focus was on sales, how to be a better salesperson. But as he became older and more successful, he branched out and suggested how his ideas could make everybody more successful, not just salespeople. Although one of the things he said was what I have said in this class, that basically everybody's a salesperson. If you're a scientist, you still have to sell your ideas. If you're an engineer, you still have to sell your ideas. Whoever wants to be successful in life has to be able to sell. Just some do it directly as their job, like my brother, and some people do it indirectly, like I say, professors trying to sell an idea to a university, engineers trying to sell an idea to a company that has hired them for consultation, whatever. You're all salespeople. So I'm going to start off with kind of, this is an important one because there will be questions definitely on this one that goes through the steps in setting and achieving effective goals. This is short, only less than 4 minutes, so I'll start with this one.
I don't know how many of you remember or recognize the name Howard Hill. Now, Howard Hill was a good Alabama boy. He was an archer. They say he was the best in the whole world.
An archer.
He was in 87 archery tournaments. He placed first 287 times. He was so good that he retired early because the other archers started getting unwilling to compete for second place. I've seen newsreels of Howard Hill where from 50 feet away he had split an arrow at dead center in the bullseye. Then he would take the next arrow and split the first one. He killed a cave buffalo with a bow and arrow. It was a difficult game animal alive to bring down. He killed a Bengal tiger. He killed a 15-foot shark in under 18 feet of water. Or was it an 18-foot shark under 15 feet of water? Well, it was a great big and it was way down there. I do know that. He was good, and there's no question. So, now let me emphasize the point. I've never shot the bow and arrow professionally. But I'm an instructor extraordinary. I'm not certain, but I think that French which means I'm really good at it. As a matter of fact, let me tell you this, how good I am as a teacher. If I could spend 30 minutes with this man or woman who'll ever do this, provided your eyesight is good and your health is normal, at the end of 30 minutes, I would have you hitting the bullseye more consistently than Howard Hill could hit it on the best day he ever had. Sound like I'm bragging, but I'm not. I could do it. Provided, of course, you're first blindfolded Howard Hill. And turn him around a couple of times so he wouldn't have a clue which way my head is. You might say, well, now, Ziglar, my goodness alive, fella. Of course you could. That's ridiculous. How on earth can a person possibly hit a target he couldn't even see? Good question, but here's the better. How can you hit a target you don't have? Did you write it down? Did you list the benefits which come your way from having to go? You know, so many times people say, well, I do this, but man, alive, it's hurt, it costs too much money, it takes too long, or whatever. I quit smoking, but you know, I gained 47 pounds or whatever, or I go back to college and get my degree. But you know, it takes me 10 years, and in 10 years I'll be 45. How old would you be in 10 years if you didn't go back to college and get a degree? But instead of that, what you need to do is you set your goal is identify the benefits. Why do I want to do this? Then you identify the obstacles that you got to overcome. Did you spell out the skills and knowledge required? Did you identify the people, the groups, and organizations to work with? Did you work out a plan of action? And did you set that date? You see, there's a formula. And the formula and the incentive for the date, you can't set a date on a lot of things. If it's applicable to do, for example, when you finish education, you don't do. You finish school. You can make it easy, but you never finish your education. When you answer these questions, if you answer any of them with, no, I didn't do that, then what you got is not a goal, it's still a dream. And that dream has got to have some foundation to it.
As I said, you should watch that again and take down those steps to establishing an effective goal. But you don't always. There are also goals that are actually, in some ways, more important than the big goals and those dreams you have that you're turning into goals. And the goals that are in some ways more important are what we used to teach the migrant education students, the stepping stone goals. If you want to get across a creek without getting wet, and it's 10 meters across, well, you're not going to do it without some stepping stones, because nobody in human history has jumped more than 30 feet, more than 10 meters. And so you're not likely to do that. So you need some stepping stones if you want to be dry and successfully get across that creek. Stepping stones are the rocks or the stones you put into a creek, or that are in the creek that you can step on one after another until you get across the other side. And so what we taught these migrant students, as I've said before, that I used to work with, are the most neglected in some ways, and the students that are most likely to fail in America, because they're coming from another country. They're not used to the American culture. They're poor. They don't have a lot of the things. They don't probably own a computer. They might very well not have access to a mobile phone, so they may have a hard time getting onto the internet. They, by the very definition, if they're migrant, it means they move every so often, and so they don't get to build a network of friends or even get to know the teachers very well. Schools in America don't have the same curriculum at every school, so they get to another school and they may not even offer the class that they were taking in the previous school. If they are offering the same class, it's probably with a different textbook. So there's many reasons why it's very frustrating, and half of all the migrant students drop out before they graduate. And frequently are encouraged by their parents to drop out because their parents would like them to go and keep working full time to help the family be more prosperous out, doing the hard labor out in the fields. And they don't believe their kids can succeed. And so they say, well, stop wasting your time, come out and work in the fields, and let's do something as a family and improve our family situation. And so they tell them that they can't succeed either. In some ways, parents of the migrant students are some of the worst enemies of them succeeding in life. Not on purpose, obviously, but that's their perception is their children are not going to succeed anyway. They're not capable of succeeding under those circumstances. So we would bring them into a 3-day conference and train them, and one of the key things we trained them on was setting stepping stone goals, because they could not imagine themselves becoming a college professor, becoming a lawyer, an architect, something like that. They can't imagine themselves doing that because that was like jumping across that 10-meter creek. They can't get across that. And they don't see how in the world they'll ever get across that. And so we had to teach them the stepping stone goals that you can do it if you take one step at a time. It may take you longer. You may not become an architect in 6 years like some people can. But you can do it in 10 years if it's necessary. And maybe you can do it in 6. You have to believe in yourself. But even if you can't do it in 6, you can do it in 10 and achieve what you wanted to achieve. And so we would explain these things to them, and it would change many of their lives so that instead of only 50% of those attending this 3-day conference graduating, 80% of them would graduate, and most of those 80% would go on to college. So if that's true for these migrant students who had everything against them, didn't speak the language nearly as well as you all do. I know some of you are still struggling, but these kids didn't have any formal education in English. They had to just kind of pick it up on their own and then start taking some of the schools that some of them went into didn't even offer classes to help them learn the English language. So they were just trying to grasp it any way they could. If they can do it, I know you can do it, certainly. And sometimes your goals may seem overwhelming also. But if they're realistic goals, like I may have said before, and I don't remember if I said it in this section or the other one, me becoming a professional football player, when, the odds of becoming a professional American football player are like 1 in 10,000 or something like that, might be even worse than that. And I'm not tall and big and strong like those that are competing for those positions. Pretty unlikely for me to get that goal. And so we do have to be somewhat realistic in in evaluating what our goals can be. That doesn't mean pessimistic, but realistic, and decide and that, for example, does not necessarily mean that you can't, well, as one of his goals, one of his steps was to figure out what education you needed. So if the only reason why you don't think you can get at a certain place, a certain goal, is because you don't know enough yet, well, then that's not a good reason, because you can learn. And I can become a better writer. I was naturally good at math, naturally good at science, and I was not naturally good at writing. But because I put my focus on it and worked hard at it, I became very good at writing, became award-winning writer. So there are some things you can learn, and you should not eliminate goals just because you don't know yet how to do it. We don't know how to become a doctor, but any of us could become a doctor if we spent enough time at it and had those right opportunities. But so learning to do the stepping stone goals is very important. So this video is more or less about that.
Let me tell you about Byron Nelson. Oh, I know you know all about Byron Nelson, but let me tell you.
You're talking about a golfer named Byron Nelson.
Years ago, he had a dream. He wanted on a debt-free ranch. Now, in 1945, there were 18 PGA events that he won. 11 of them in succession. Now, that is undoubtedly never going to be broken. But let me tell you how it came about. The stage was set in 1944. When he won 8 events, was the leading money winner at $38,000. That's the equivalent today of $453,790. And when you factor in today's prices, that would be over $10 million. Now, he's still learning. We talk about the performance plan that gets into the details. Byron Nelson, like any good businessman, kept really great records of every round. And before the 1945 season started, he got those records out. And he takes over. And he noticed two things came up too often: poor tipping and careless shots. So his individual goal, was to avoid those careless shots and become better at chipping. Every good drive, chip or putt, could buy another cow. That's the way he meant it. I chip good, I get another cow. I hit drive good, I get another cow. win a tournament and need to buy a few more acres. Now, had the dream, but he also had it as a long-range goal. He also wanted to have a lower scoring average. He wanted to break the tournament record. Had the big goals, but he also had those little baby goals. That made the difference. Intermediate goal was back here. Lowest scoring average. But his long-range goal was to buy that ring. Now, folks, I think you all know. He won the boat tournament. He improved his short game. He tipped got a whole lot better. His putt was even better. When he reached those daily goals, then, ladies and gentlemen, he reached the big goal.
So, of course, his example here is of a golfer learning, working on some of the individual elements he had to work on in order to achieve success, ultimately in becoming the best golfer in the world, and actually by a long ways, the best, winning, I think he said 18 tournaments in a row, which is a record that's never been broken.
I want to talk a little bit about goals on the line of how do you lose 37 pounds and write a book. I'm just going to kind of give you that as an example. For 24 years of my adult life, by choice, I weighed well over 200 pounds. I say by choice because, you see, I had never accidentally eaten anything. I mean, it's always been deliberate. And when I choose to eat too much today, I have chosen to weigh too much tomorrow. You can choose to set goals and realize your potential, or you can choose not to set them. Now, if you choose not to set them, you got to understand that the consequences are not going to be good down the road. For 24 years, I was going to lose that weight. As a matter of fact, in 24 years, I lost several thousand pounds of weight. How many of you already know exactly what I'm talking about? But it wasn't until I wrote it down, put a date on it, listed the obstacles I had to overcome, identified the people, the groups, the organizations I needed to work with, spelled out a plan of action, set that time limit in there, and identified all of the benefits to me. It was only when I did that that the goal became a reality, and I lost the weight. 10 or 15 years, I was going to write a book. You know anybody who's going to do just a whole lot of things, folks? I was going to write a book. But it wasn't until I got busy writing the book and writing the plans first before the book ever materialized. Now, to sound like I'm trying to sell you on having goals, how many of you are getting close already? How many of you are becoming convinced right quick like that you need to have those goals? There's no question about it. The immortal J.C. Penney many, many years ago said, give me a stock clerk with a goal, and I'll give you a man who'll make history. But give me a man without a goal, and I'll give you a stock clerk. Now, the interesting thing is goals do not care who has them. Let me give you a classic example of the way they work. In 1950, a war-torn, devastated Japan, a nation who had lost an incredibly high percentage of its young men. The cities were in ruins, had been bombed out, but in 1950, they got together, they meaning industry and government got together and set a goal. The goal was we're going to be the #1 nation in the world during the 1950s in the production of textiles. In 1959, ladies and gentlemen, they accomplished that objective. In 1906, they set another goal. We're going to be the #1 nation in the world in the production of steel. Now, when you understand there's no iron ore in Japan of any significance, there's no coal of any significance there, we're going to be the #1 nation in the world in the production of steel. It seemed like an absurd goal, and yet they reached their objective. They've taken all of the steps. In 1970, the Japanese set another goal. They said during the 70s, we'll be the #1 nation in the world in the production of automobiles. They missed it, folks. 1 year. It took them until 1980. In 1980, they set another goal. And this time their goal was, we're going to be the #1 nation in the world in the production of computers and and electronics. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, you absolutely must have those goals. You got to write it down. You got to put a date on it. You got to identify those obstacles. You got to identify the people, the groups you need to work with. You got to find out what it is you need to know. You got to develop a plan of action, and you got to write it down. What's in it for me? Now that's a formula that I have just given you, pure and simple. Now if I were to ask you what 3 times 3 was, there is a person here who could not instantly answer it. But if I were to ask you what is 5,128 times 2,165, odds are enormous, but very few of you could pop out the answer that quickly. But if I were to say to you, get your pencil and paper out, figure it out, then all of you could figure it out. Why? You know the formula. Now you see, if you know the formula, it really doesn't make any difference, ladies and gentlemen, what the goal really is. When I started to write the book, I took precisely the same steps that I'm talking about. I wrote down the objective. I wrote down the time I completed or expected to complete the book. I identified the obstacles there. And yes, I know this is repetitious. It's the mode of learning. I wrote out and identified the people, the groups, the organizations I needed to work with. I devised a plan of action to do it. I spelled out what I needed to know, and I wrote it all down. What's in it for me?
Well, let me just make a few comments on that then, and then we'll have our students making their presentations. But let's take that example. He was talking about writing a book. Of course, I am a writer, but writing a book is a hard thing. I've written chapters of books, and I have written books, but I'm not. If I were to decide, in fact, I plan to write another book, but say, that's still, even for a writer. Actually, the book I'm going to write is a multimedia book, so it involves not just the writing, which I can do fairly easily, but it also involves creating videos to train the people in the skills that I'm going to talk about in the book. So that's an area that I'm not as good at in preparing really professional videos. And altogether, it's a big challenge regardless. I know it's going to take at least a year. And so it's not realistic for me to say, well, I'm going to do that in 2 months, because I know I can't do that in 2 months. But if I set my stepping stone goals and figure out how I can get from here to there in a reasonable way, I know I just got done writing 2 chapters of a book in 1 month, or might have been 5 weeks. So I know I could write a chapter in a month if I needed to. Now, I also spent way too much time doing that because universities push us, and I didn't have a choice on the timetable, by the way. It was either do it by December 10th or they wouldn't accept it. So for me to be published, I had to do it, and the university wanted me to do it, which means I'm behind all my grading, by the way, and I apologize. But and now I have to get caught up with all the work I didn't do while I was writing the book, or the chapters to the book. I also had to recruit some help, so I had Luis from our department co-author one of the chapters. So I really kind of wrote 1.5 chapters during that period of time. But I also fell way behind in everything else. I didn't do my exercising the last few weeks. I didn't have time for family. I didn't have time to do all my other responsibilities like grading. And that's very frustrating to me. So if I were to make the long-term plan, I would not be making it for 1 chapter a month because I would recognize it would screw up my entire life to do 1 chapter a month. And so I might have to make it, okay, I'm going to make it 1 chapter every 6 weeks, or maybe even 1 chapter every 2 months. But if you remember back with Stephen Covey's matrix, time matrix, what I need to do, because I've been meaning to write this particular book for 2 years now, and I haven't done it, I need to move it from the quadrant of important but not urgent over into the quadrant that's important and urgent. How do I move it over there? Well, there's several ways that I move it over from quadrant 2, important and not urgent, over to important and urgent. One of it is just the process of what he was talking about. That I set out the timeline, and I don't just make the final date. He didn't really say it specifically, but I have to set every date of every chapter, every aspect of this book that I'm going to do. I need to break it down into what am I going to accomplish each month. Because if I don't do it that way, then I don't have something to put into my daily calendar very well, other than, work on the book. And that's not specific enough. I need to know that by the end of this month, I have to get a video done to teach people how to do a certain skill. Or I have to write a chapter of the book at the end of 2 months, or whatever it might be. And so I have to do that. I have to be able to put it on my calendar, and I have to consider urgent enough, not just important, but urgent enough that I will stay up all night to get it done. If I get down to that last couple of days, as I have, by the way, with these chapters of this book, I was putting in many, many long hours to get those chapters done when I approached that deadline. I almost felt that last day, I almost felt like I wasn't going to survive that day, honestly. I really wondered if I was going to survive that day. I felt so much pressure, and I had so much to do in that last day, I wondered if this old body of mine was going to make it. But I had set the goal. I had a specific deadline. In this case, I had a publisher deadline. And that helps also, by the way. Say you were going to write a book again, as an example. You would then, you might get somebody to volunteer to read your chapters as you got done with them. And so you set a schedule with them. I'm going to have this chapter done by such and such a date so you can read it over and give me feedback. Now, you might pay that person, or might not have to. But regardless, you have now set a deadline with somebody else. So now it's not just a deadline for you, but now it's a deadline that involves somebody else. And that then makes it more of an urgent thing than it was when you just put down the goal and you said, I'm going to put it in the urgent. Now you involve other people. Now it becomes even more urgent. Other people are expecting you to complete something. You might, if you were married, ask your spouse, explain how important it was to you and how important it was to have his or her support. And say, okay, in order to do this, I'm going to come home from work and I'm going to spend 2 hours with the family, but then I'm going to have to work 2 or 3 hours on my book, maybe from 9 o'clock until midnight or something, for 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock, whatever it might take. And if your spouse is bought into the goal and realize how important it is and sees the benefits by doing it, then the spouse can also help you and it becomes more urgent again, not just important. So there's ways of moving it from the important and not urgent over into the important and urgent, and you can do it yourself, and you don't need a boss to tell you that, unless you count your spouse as your boss, which I do. But so if you get that boss to buy into it, then that helps a lot. So as you set out these goals and you make all these stepping stone goals, and you make out your plan realistically, and then, like I say, each of these stepping stone goals, you have to have a sense of urgency when it gets down close to that goal, that you're going to sacrifice what it takes to get that goal done. So it should be realistic, but then you should have the level of commitment that it will be done or I'll be up all night doing it. It's going to get done. Therefore, you might make that goal on a Friday night, for example, so you can stay up all night and go to sleep, Saturday noon or something and get caught up a little bit with your rest. But that I think the other aspect of that is also what he said in one of the videos. If I look at, next month I'll be 68 years old. And so if I look at writing the book and I say, gee, this is going to take me, I'm going to make a big one, or maybe it's a different goal altogether, but whatever. Let's say I have a goal that I think realistically is going to take me 5 years. And I say, well, that's ridiculous. I'll be 73 years old when I get done with that goal. And as he said about one of the goals he was talking about, well, guess what? I'm going to be 73 years old in 5 years no matter what. And so why not set a goal that's going to take me 5 years? Sometimes we discourage ourselves because it's hard. Sometimes we discourage ourselves because it takes so long. But if you know you can do, and maybe part of your goal, your stepping stone is to get some education, but if you know that you can do the stepping stone goals, then it's only a matter now of you having the determination and courage to do it. And so when you have a major goal, make sure you set stepping stone goals that are achievable in the time frame and you know you can do, and then have the courage to do it. And then do it. You just do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and have our first group come up of student presenters, and we will get on to this, to the next item here.
A very good morning to Professor Ken Harvey and my fellow classmates. My name is Chi Yao, and these are my team members, Wei Yong and Yong Bin. So I'm sure everyone here wants to get good results for their tests. And today the topic of our presentation is about preparing for and taking tests. And we are hopeful that everyone here will learn something from our presentation, and hopefully it could assist you in your upcoming exams. So these are basically the contents that we will be covering. Firstly, I will talk about what exams really are, and there is the learning cycle, and then my teammate will talk about how to deal with test anxiety, and learning where, when, and how to study, recognizing types of tests, learning tips for different types of questions, and finally applying general strategies for tests and exams. So what is a test? A test, to be brief, is basically a measurement of how much we know about a subject. For example, cooking is also a test. Cooking is a test of delicacy, to know whether the food cooked is delicious or not. Athletic events is also a test. For example, marathon is a test of our strength. It is a test of our physical attributes. It is also used to measure our progress of mastery of a particular skill. The skills that I've mentioned, cooking skills, strength, physical attributes, these are the skills. Task is not to determine whether we are skilled or talented. It is used to measure whether we know that subject in a specific point in time. And because of that, test is a good learning opportunity or extraordinary learning opportunity. The reason being, we don't want to get bad results. And because of that, we are afraid to be judged badly, and we will be motivated to get good results and to learn more. So how are academic tests compared to what I've mentioned before? Well, in terms of characteristics, they are basically the same. However, to be specific, the lecturers and teachers, they expect us to be tested in thoughts, interpretation, thinking process, and conclusions. The textbook that we are referring to also mentioned that academic tests are actually more reliant on memorization instead of understanding. Well, not sure what you guys think, but I have to agree with this statement. This is because we didn't actually get much chance to use our knowledge practically during this period. This is the learning cycle. The learning cycle begins with preparing, absorbing new ideas, followed by recording, and finally ends with applying. So the topic that we'll be covering today is basically the start with preparing and ends with applying. So now imagine yourself in this cycle. You have prepared well for your exams. You have paid attention during all lectures. You revise all the notes. But as the exams looms closer, you start to get nervous. You start to get anxious and you're worried about your exams. So now my teammate will talk about how to deal with anxiety. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Wei Yong. So, when taking tests, most of us must be feeling anxious. And this picture shows us what is anxious about. And here I will tell you about how to deal with anxiety. First, we must be prepared by taking good classes and reading notes every day. As soon as you know the exam is coming, you should have a plan and follow it. Thirdly, we should bounce away bad vibes. Don't have negative thought, but positive one. And fourthly, don't compare yourself to other students. Focus on your own work, and it's all about you. Fifthly, you have to eat well and sleep well. Poor eating habit and lack of sleep will contribute to test anxiety and might make you sick as well. And the last one is you must be chill in your exam because you perform best when you are relaxed. And next, I will going to talking about when, where and how to study. But first, we need to know. We are studying to learn but not only for tests and exam. To be successful in exam, we have to study every day, gather learning material and read it every day to cement your knowledge. Secondly, is studying in course unit, chapter by chapter, and study before exam. And the last one is about studying in group, which is recommended to be not more than 4 people and must be go for quality, which means people who are proactive in asking questions and involved in discussion. And more tips for study is get yourself in right place, just like the picture I show you, which you are comfortable with. And secondly is minimum distraction. Turn off your cell phone and social media and other activities. Focus on your revision. And last one is take a short break every 1 hour when you are studying for a long time. And moving on, it's all about recognizing type of tests. And there is 6 type of tests because different type of tests need different type of preparation. And the test is paper test, open book test, take-home test, online test, electronic test in class, presentation, and oral test. As for the rest, my teammate will contribute the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good morning everyone. Once again, I'm Yongpin, and now I'm going to present you some information about general strategies for tests and exams. So basically, I divide the preparation of tests into 2 parts, which is before the test and during the test. So before the test, what you have to do is learn as much as you can, and attend all the classes and complete all the assignments given by lecturers. So while we are working on assignments, pay special attention to it and do not simply finish it, so that you can have a better understanding on the study contents. Next, for students who wish to have study groups with friends, you can also form a study group with friends. So with study group, you can foresee the examination questions together and also take turns to present the solutions to problems together. So, which is good for everyone. And next, besides studying, you must also get yourself enough time to relax and rest. So you can spend some time to do some outdoor activities such as stretching, jogging, or even do some meditation. So most importantly is to avoid being stressed out. And lastly, be prepared. So before the examination starts, ensure yourself that you have finished covering all the related topics and the contents. So if yes, you are ready, congratulations. Believe in yourself. If you are not ready, okay, it's okay. Keep calm and pray and tell yourself that I can do it. Go. Okay, next. For the next part, during the test, what you have to do before you start your test is to plan for a test. The reason to do this is to ensure that you can be able to finish it on time. So after planning, write it down. Write all the things that you memorize or some important things on a scratch paper. So that do that while we are fresh, so that you can refer to the notes while you are taking exams. So after that, read the instructions carefully. If you are not sure about the instructions, ask the instructor until you be sure, and follow the instructions completely. And next, after done reading the instructions, you may start your exam. So use past system. Past system is which you do the easy question first and leave the hard and time-consuming questions last. So next, you have to keep an eye on the time, which means that you have to focus on the time, make sure that everything goes on the plan, and to ensure you manage to finish the exams on time. Lastly, check your work. Okay, so now I'm going to share you some strategies about doing MCQ, doing multiple choice questions. Okay, when you are doing MCQ questions, after finish reading the questions, don't straightly look for the answers. Instead, you think in your mind for an answer, so that then only you look for the options. Eliminate the incorrect options, then only you choose the right one. So how if you are unsure about what is the answer? Okay, follow MCQ theory. Choose the shortest or the longest answer, or you can simply pick B and D. Okay, for the next one is true and false question. So true and false question, you can restate the statement from positive to negative statement, and the other way around. Okay, so that you can put yourself to think in the other way, which is more helpful to you. If you are unsure about the question, follow the true or false theory. Pick the true, because the true will be more likely to be the correct answer. And if picking the wrong answer will penalize more than leaving the answer column blank, you just leave it blank. Okay, next thing. Okay, for short answer questions, actually short answer questions does not have an absolute or exact answer. So what you have to do is critical thinking. So you may need to use your thoughts and what you have learned in class and in what you have read in books, and apply the knowledge and answer it in short and specific. Okay. Lastly, for the essay questions, before you start writing your essay, plan your essay and structure it, then only write it. Be cautious for the keywords like analyze, compare, contrast, and something like that. So if time allows, you can create a quick outline for your essay to ensure that you won't leave out the key points. When you're writing an essay, straightly get to the right point. Don't write something that doesn't value your essay, and write it neatly to get a good impression from the instructor. Okay, that's all for my part. Thank you.
Well, this is the last part of our presentation. These are the 3 questions that we have prepared for you all. The first question is, what are the learning cycles? Anyone would like to answer? If no, then I will answer it myself. Okay. Yeah. Anyone? No? Okay. The answer is actually in one of my slides. If you excuse me. Yeah, this is the answer. So the learning cycle begins with pairing, followed by absorbing new ideas, recording, and finally ends with applying. Returning to the questions. Oh, sorry.
And the second question is how to deal with test anxiety. And someone know the answer? Okay, nice try. And the answer is these 6. These 6 tips, and the third answer I will pass to my friend to explain it.
Okay, the third question, what should we do before the test? Who can answer? Who would like to answer? Okay, if nobody wants to answer, I answer myself. Okay, before the test, what we should do before the test is to learn, form a study group to learn, and get yourself enough time to get relaxed and rest, and lastly, be prepared. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's about all of our presentation today. We wish you all the best in your upcoming finals. Thank you.
Is there another group ready to present today? There should be 2 a day now. Do we have another one ready? I did send out that, a long time ago I did send out the list, so okay, good. You guys can come set up. While they're setting up, I do have a couple of comments. Everybody works a little differently. Your lifestyles, your bodies, everything is a little bit different. I would say this about part of it, and that is I personally totally disagree that you need to have a lot of rest before a final exam. I mentioned before, what was the hardest class I've ever had in my life. I was warned ahead of time that it was going to be the hardest class. And so I went into it with some fear and trepidation. There was a research class, and so the day and night before, I went through and I put down in my 4x6 inch cards everything I could think of that he might ask in that test. And I stayed up almost all night because I know that these exams are short-term memory exams. It's not stuff I'm going to remember long-term. This is pretty much short-term memory stuff. And so the shorter my memory has to last, the better I'm going to do. And so I basically stayed up all night, and when I got done, out of 181 possible points, and I've told you this before, I got 179 points. The very next highest was 126. So I got basically 50% more points than anybody else in class. Now, it's kind of like I talked about with other goals, major goals, where if I have to get down to it, I will work all night if I have to get that job done. And I see final exams in that same category. I would stay up all night if necessary to make sure I had that down pat. And probably that class was the best example because it was the hardest class. Other people maybe thought they could just rest and be better prepared, but I was up all night studying that son of a gun. I didn't know, obviously I couldn't tell in advance that that the difference between me and the number 2 person would be that far. The professor said he didn't think he could do as well in his own exam as I did. But it was a matter of figuring out what the professor could possibly want, writing it down, the kinesthetic learning, writing it down, note card after note card, then studying those note cards over and over and over again. That made that possible. So I don't totally agree. Granted, again, I'm in a profession that requires tough deadlines. When I bought my first newspaper, sometimes I had to stay up all night putting out the newspaper because I was the only full-time employee. I had two part-time employees, and I had to do everything. And I had to meet a weekly deadline and have my newspaper pressed, or I was going to go broke. So I had plenty of adrenaline to make that happen, and that's one thing I believe in is adrenaline. When you feel under threat, your body will produce adrenaline that will allow you to do things that you can't do normally. And so normally I could not stay up all night. But it was a high enough priority for me, and I feel strongly enough about it, my body kicked into that emergency mode, and I have the adrenaline rush, and I can stay up all night and do that stuff. So now whether you can pull that off, I can't say. I can't necessarily put it in the textbook and say this is how you do it, but I know that's how I do it. And I can get the adrenaline rush, and I can stay up all night, one night, in a semester, prepare for that final exam. I mean, I don't want to do it the rest of the nights, but I can do it one night. And so you have to figure out what you can do, but knowing that tests are short-term memory, I want to make that time that I have between when I get done studying and the time I take that test as short as possible. And I want to in the meanwhile, do enough work that I have tried to figure out anything they could possibly ask. And so I have it all memorized for short term, very short term. And I know it's short term, and that's one reason why I don't believe in tests, is because they test something that you're not going to remember. In a month, you'll have forgotten it all. So I don't really like the way that universities and schools sometimes teach and test, including short-term tests. So they don't really do much for you. And short-term memory, as I said before, is of all your mental functions. I can't think of one mental function of less value than short-term memory in the real world. And the truth is, if it's important to you, you'll remember it anyway. Everybody remembers what's important to them. So when you get a job, you're not going to have a problem saying, oh no, I can't remember how to type or whatever. It's going to be very rare that you find yourself in a position where you're going to really fret about memory. For one thing, you can look it up. You have Google. And so if you can't remember something, you just Google it. And so it's, in the real world, short-term memory is of very little value. And the difference between all of us in short-term memory is very small. Very small. If it's important to you, remember. And so in the real world, that short-term memory is comparatively of very little value. Okay, let's see what we do here.
We are going to use our online.
Okay, we need to do it on that one because in order to record it.
Okay. So
I need you to
how send it to your email.
You need something to transfer it with. I have. I have this USB. If you need that to copy it over, you can use this to copy it over.
Okay.
I'll just. Maybe I'll copy it under there, and we'll move it over here.
A very good morning to everyone. So I am Ming-Xuan, and these are my teammates, Zhao, Sihe, and Chen Chuan. So we are going to discuss about Chapter 7, Interacting with Instructor and Classes. So we need to understand why it is so important to interact well with your instructor and participate in class. Understanding why it is essential to attend classes and actively engage in the learning process. Preparing for and being comfortable participating in class and staying active in lecture classes to increase your learning are important too. So importance to attend the class are, if we miss a class and we will miss something we should learn, and therefore a very important thing. So what we miss might affect our grade or our enthusiasm for the course. Research shows there is a correlation between absences from class and lower grades. And we also paid a lot of money for tuition fees, so we are not going to waste the money. So what if when we have to miss our class? So we need to tell the instructor in advance and attend for another section of course. So we need to ask another student whose judgment you trust if you can copy his or her notes. So remember the worst thing you can say to an instructor. If I miss a class, did you talk about any important things in the class? So what is the value of interaction in class? There are many good reasons to attend every class. but it's not enough just to be there. So we need to interact with the instructor and other students to enjoy a full educational experience. So participating in class discussion is a good way to start meeting other students with whom you share an interest. We can form a study group or team up with other students on a group project. So the important thing is we can develop our network of contacts for other benefits in the future, such as learning about internship or jobs. Asking the instructor question, answering the instructor question in class, and responding to other student comments is a good way to make an impression on your instructor. The instructor will remember you as an engaged student, and this matters if you later need extra help or even a potential mentor. So paying close attention and thinking critically about what an instructor is saying can dramatically improve your enjoyment of the class. So you will notice things you missed if you are feeling bored, and may discover your instructor is much more interesting than your first thought. Students actively engage in their class learn more, and those get better grades. When you speak out in class and answer the instructor question, you are more likely to remember the discussion. So next I will pass to Zahao.
Good morning, I'm Zahao, and now I'm going to talk about the part 7.2, participating in class. What is class participating? Class participation is actually an impromptu, informal type of public speaking, and the same principles will get you through both preparing and communicating. And the guidelines to participating in class is: first, set yourself out for success by coming to class full prepared, complete reading assignments, review your notes on the reading and previous class to get yourself in the right mindset. And we must pay attention to the instructor body language, which can communicate much more than just his or her words. How the instructor moves and gesture and the looks on his or her face will add meaning to the words, and will also cue you when it's a good time to ask a question or stay silent. And the third guide is: take good notes, but don't write obsessively, and never page through your textbook or browse on a laptop. Don't eat or play with your cell phone, except when writing brief notes. Keep your eyes on the instructor. And the last guide I advocate is: don't say or ask anything just to try to impress your instructor. Most instructors have been teaching long enough to immediately recognize insincere flattery and the impression this makes is just the opposite of what you want. And now I'm gonna show you some things you need to do when instructor asks a question in the class. First, you must raise your hand and make eye contact, but don't call out or wave our hand all around trying to catch his or her attention. And the second is, before we speaking, take a moment to gather our thought and take a deep breath. Don't just blurt it out. Speak calmly and clearly. The things you need to do when your instructor asks you a question directly is be honest and admit it. You don't know the answer or are not sure. Don't try to fake it or make excuse. And organize your thought and give a sufficient answer. Instructors seldom want a yes or no answer. Give your answer and provide reason or evidence in support. when you want to ask the instructor a question, the first way is don't ever feel the question is stupid. If you have been paying attention in class and have done the reading and you still don't understand something, you have every right to ask. And the second way is ask at the appropriate time. Don't interrupt the instructor or jump ahead and ask a question about something the instructor may be starting to explain. Here is 2 guides to participating in lecture hall classes. The first is, since the time when classes is limited, be ready with your question or comment when the opportunity arises. And don't be shy about raising your hand first. And the second is, speak deliberately and professionally, not as you might when talking with a friend. Use standard English rather than slang. Teaching style versus learning style. Students have many different learning styles. Understanding your learning style can help you study more effectively. When the instructor's teaching style matches your learning style, you are usually more attentive in class and may seem to learn better. When you are having some difficulty paying attention in class and following the lectures, you can 1. Form a study group with other students. A variety of students will likely involve a variety of learning styles, and when going over course material with other students, such as when studying for tests, you can gain what they have learned through their styles, while you contribute what you have learned through your. And the second is, you can also communicate with the instructor privately during office hour. For example, you can explain that you are having the difficulty understanding lectures because so many things are said so fast. The third is, use ancillary study materials. Many textbooks point students to online resources centers or include a computer CD that offer additional learning materials. Such ancillary materials usually offer an opportunity to review course materials in ways that may better fit your learning style. And now I'm passing to.
Okay. Good morning, sir, and my fellow students. Once again, I'm Chua, and now I'm going to talk about the way to communicating with instructors. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about the benefits of communicating with instructor. When the more you communicating with your instructor, it helps you to feel more comfortable and more connected to the campus. And talking with the instructor is also a valuable way to learn about your related academic field also. So you may need a reference or a letter of recommendation for a job in your future, and because the instructors are often well connected within their field, so they may learn a job that you don't know, so that may help you to find your few future jobs and hits. And the last one is the benefits is learning outside the classroom. So now, although there are many benefits, however, there are also some guidelines also. So, first of all, you should be well prepared before going to the instructor office, and then don't forget to introduce yourself. Due to many of the instructors are busy doing their work, so you should respect the instructor times and don't try to fool an instructor and do the work properly, so the instructor will be happy to see you and give you some help also. So you also should try to see things from the instructor point of view, and you can be cordial and friendly but keep it professional and on an adult level. So when you are talking with your instructor, use your best communication skill. So there are some extra cases. such as part-time students and returning students. For part-time students, they are usually they work at working hours, so it's difficult to make an appointment with the instructors with its working times. So in order to solve these problems, they should not be hesitant to make an appointment with the instructor at another times. And your needs also will be respected by your instructor also. So other than that, even meet your instructor over cup of coffee after class will do so also. So the next cases is returning students. Sometimes a returning student feel a little out of the place, may even feel the campus system is designed for younger students. So this attitude will lead literally students feeling fair to attend the class and communicate with the instructors. So actually, the instructor are very likely to communicate with the returning students. So now I'm going to talk about email. So email has become a primary form of communication in business and society, even in campus. So it plays an important role to connect both students and instructors, especially when it's difficult to meet up with your instructor during long office hour. So there are some guidelines for email writing. So the first one is if you have a funny name that you use with your friends, you should try to create a new one and make it more formal just for communicating with your instructors. So don't get your point quickly and consistently. Don't make your instructor need to scroll down a lot of your long email to see what you are trying to say. And don't attempt to be funny, ironic, and sarcastic. And because of capital letters looks like shorting, so you should not use all capital letter to emphasize your email. So you should also avoid abbreviation means that you shouldn't use any short forms and non-standard spelling, slangs, and emoticons like smiley faces when you are contacting with your instructors. So you also don't meet the demands or state your expectations, such as I will expect to hear from you as soon as possible, and make sure you begin it with politely and ending your email with thanks on something else to show you are appreciating your instructor helps. And you should also read through your message before sending it, because many problems have resulted when people send message too quickly without the thinking. So now I'm going to talk about the way to resolve a problem with your instructors. The common issue is that the students are feeling that are getting a lower grade that they deserve to get. So there are some guidelines. First, you should go over the requirement for the task, and before going to the instructor office, you should make sure you actually have a reason for discussing the grades, and make an appointment with your instructor during office hour or another time. Don't try to talk about this before or after the class or with an email or the telephones. And make sure you begin it by politely and don't complain. And you should first allow the instructors to explain his or her comments. Instead, show your appreciation for the explanation by your instructors. So you should also what you can do to improve your grades is if it's possible. So now I'm going to talk about mentor. So here are the definition of a mentor. So a mentor is someone who is usually older and more experienced than you, who becomes your trusted guide, advisor, and role models. So a mentor is also someone you may want to be like in your future career or professions. A mentor is also someone who is willing to help you, to talk with you about the decision you face, to support you when things become difficult, and to guide you when you are feeling lost. So a mentor can also become a valuable part of your future network, but also can help you now. So a mentor is not like a good friend. The mentor relationship is more informal and develops slowly, often without actively looking for a mentor. So some college or university have more formal mentoring programs, and you should also be involved in it, and if you have the opportunity. So you should take your time to build a good relationship with your advisor, with your mentor, as the same with your instructors. following the same guidelines in this chapter that we mentioned before, the way to communicating and interacting. So now I'm going to talk about the online courses. So online courses have grown rapidly in this recent year. So online courses have a number of practical benefits, but also followed by some special issues. And I think that many students enjoy online courses due to the practical benefits of you can scan during your own time. And it's also depending on everyone different learning styles, such as someone is more preferable to writing, someone is more preferable to listening. So, and online courses may be feel natural to someone and or more difficult to someone. So there are also some guidelines. So at first, you should make sure you have the technology. If you are not comfortable to read or to write on a computer, please don't rush into an online courses. If you have the limited access to a computer or a high-speed internet, you should arrange your schedule to use a computer elsewhere. So you also have to be sure you have enough time in your week for all of the course activity and try to schedule regular times online and for your assignment. And you should know that you are the one who are going to responsible for your course, for your assignment, due to you are the one to be motivating yourself. So you should also take the responsibility for your learning. So work on your writing skill is also one of the guidelines that for online courses. And most online assignments require critical thinking skill. It's not as simple as you think. So you should always engage with the course materials also. So your instructor can see you to know if you are feeling confused or anxious. So it's very important to seek for help. And you also should be patient when you are waiting for the reply for the answer from your instructors. So now I'm going to pass the presentation to my teammates.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to start my presentation. My topic is public speaking and class presentation. Public speaking cannot be avoided in our class and even our future career. So it is very important to develop the presentation skills. So public speaking is you sharing your thought, your questions, your ideas to others. But the public speaking is very quite difficult for all of us because it will make us feel anxious. So you must to overcome it. I will share some skill to overcome our anxiety. First is understand the anxiety. Since stage fright is normal, don't try to deny that you are feeling anxious. A little anxiety will motivate you to do best. And second is understand that your audience want you to succeed. Everyone is on your side, so everyone is hoping you are succeed. Third is reduce anxiety by preparing and practicing. The more you preparing and practicing, the anxiety will be reduced lesser and lesser. And focus on what you are saying, not how you are saying it. So you must focus on what is your content and your ideas. Don't focus on how you're saying it. So, and fifth is develop self-confidence. The more you practice, the confidence you may get more. Next is guideline for presentation. They have step process to preparing and delivering your presentation. Step 1 is analyze your audience and goals and think about what your audience already know and don't know about your topic. So you are focused on your new idea you have developed. And second is consider how much explanation or example will be needed for your audience to grasp your point. And third is consider your audience attitude and choose your word carefully. If your topic is contain some controversial topic, so you must take care of your audience attitude and choose your word carefully. Next is be sure you are clear about your goal for the presentation. You want to know what you want to present. Is your presentation is your want to give a report or need to give some summary. So fifth is review the assignment and talk with the instructor if you are unsure. Next is your goal guide everything in the past. It will guide you what to say, what you say, how much you want to say, what order you say in it. Next is step 2, plan, research, and organize your content. Starting with your reading, you must brainstorm your topic, and while you are researching and reading to gather your information, please jot down the note down. And next is the content must be you must introduce your topic and state your main idea and go into more detail before you conclude your presentation. There is some thing to notice that you look for a logical order for the specific in the middle. Some topic is best foot of chronological or time order or with a compare and contrast organization. If you want to persuade the audience, please build out to the strongest reason. While you are researching, you may think about visual aids, and it will help you to present, and you must also consider the time. Next is step 3, draft and revise the presentation. How much you write depends on your own learning and speaking style. Some pupil is speaking well he just write some keyword in her script, but someone must to write the whole sentence in a whole sentences in their script. So, but please mention that you must keep your eyes on the audience, not keep your eyes in your script and not read directly from the script. Next, is something to notice that you must arrange your time to prepare the first graph, and you can come back 1 or 2 days and ask you this question: Am I going on too long about minor point? Do I have good explanation and reason for my main point? Am I using the best word for this topic? And so on. And visual aid is a good tool in our presentation. It will support us. They have some example, a chart or graph, map, photo or other image, video clip, and handout. As we know, lecture always give a lot of video for us to watch. And there is also have some thing to notice is you must use a simple and neutral background. It is perfect to use a light color words and dark color background. And you must control your text in your visual and make sure the text is large enough to audience to read, and use the necessary image that can support your presentation. Is not used for decoration, and avoid sound effect, and use a necessary animation, and be careful not to use so many visual or move through them so quickly, because you use too much, the audience is give their attention to the visual aids rather than to you. And practice your presentation using your visual aids, because the visual aids is spending a lot of time. So you must control your time and explain visual when need, but not when you are obvious. So let's briefly add visual to stay in sync with them. Step 4, prepare speaking note. The speaking note is brief outline for your presentation. It will include important fact and data as well as keyword for your main ideas. So ensure not put too much word in your speaking note, and be sure number your cut to or page to prevent a last minute miss up. So you can think especially about how to open and close your presentation, because these two moments have the most impact of the whole presentation. So they have some possibility for your opening. First is a striking fact or example. Next is a brief interest or humorous anecdote, and a question to the audience and interesting quotation. And the closing is mirror opening. So you must put your whole key point into the closing. So a strong way to end is include a challenge to the audience, a strong statement about the topic, a personal reflection of what you have been saying, or an use to actions. Step 5 is practice the presentation. Focus on putting your outline not into full sentence in your natural speaking voice, and grace down at your not only briefly, and focus on your audience and practice 2 or 3 times. You must control your time and how to use your correct words to present and foster your confidence. And work on, if you are speaking well in your script, you can work on polishing your delivery. You can record your presentation or present in front of your friends to watch, to let them give you some feedback on your presentation skills. They have something to notice. It's the best to try to use your natural voice to present and practice change in your delivery style to emphasize key points. Sometimes you can speak up and sometimes you can slow down your speaking, and don't keep looking at your note, and ensure you can pronounce all new words and technical terms correctly. And don't forget put the transition between two different ideas, and watch out for filler words and sounds such as like, you know, well, and they are distracting audience. And pay attention to the body language when practicing. You must stand up straight and talk, and you can moving around while you are speaking. And if you feel natural, you can use hand and arm gestures. And keep your eyes moving over the audience and practicing smiling and pausing at the key point. Next is step 6. Deliver the presentation. You must get enough sleep and eat a healthy breakfast, because it will make you perform well. And wear appropriate clothing and comfortable shoes. And before you present, if you feel nervous, you can take a few deep breaths and rehearse your opening line in your mind. And smile and looking at your audience. And at the closing, please deliver your last line with confidence. And if appropriate, you can ask some question to the audience. And there will also some step process to preparing and delivering group presentation. First is schedule a group meeting as soon as possible to start, and make sure everyone understand the assignment and discuss who should do what. Well, everyone should talk about what content to include. You will each take a specialized role. Everyone has their advantage, so you must choose a correct rule to present. Some people is good at research, so he can do the job of research, and some people is good and present, they will choose to present. And a team is need a leader to keep all things on the right track and make sure everyone understand his task. And group members should stay in touch. Everything is relating, so you must always communicate with others, so the job will complete very quickly. Before preparing note, meet again to go over the content and plan for research. The whole group should be present for practice sessions, even if only a few are speaking. During the delivery, especially if using technology for research, one student should manage the research while others do the presentation. It will keep the presentation keep flowing.
One more thing to mention, we have missed out the Q&A part, and so we will add back on after this, and that's all for our presentation. And thank you for your attention and your consultation. So thank you.
point is important, by the way. If you forget to do a Q&A and you get it to me right away, then you're not going to be penalized nearly as much as if you don't ever get it to me. Like I've told some groups, hey, you didn't do your questions. Give me your questions right away, and I still don't have them weeks later. That's one reason why I don't grade immediately, because I'm waiting for questions so I can give them a better grade, and they never send them to me. So if you forget to do something like that, this isn't just about this class. Always, if you forget something, make it up. Follow up and do it right. So whether that's in your job, whether it's for some other sort of assignment, if you goof up, correct it quickly. And whether it's on a job or something else, you're going to, it won't be as damaging as if you then decide, I'm not going to bother or whatever. Okay. We don't have a lot of time. I'm just going to make a few comments on the presentations, a few more. Going back to the first one, one of the things that I was going to mention there was about group study. They did make an important point. They suggested no more than 4 people in the group. From my experience, first off, I never worked in a group. But I've seen my children sometimes working in group, and for some of them it works okay, and some of it does not work very well. Because some of them who are overly social find themselves distracted in a group. The other thing a group can do that is bad, I think, is if you get together in a group to answer questions for homework, and then you end up not learning the material. So you get done with your homework quick, but when you're all done, you don't remember anything. So if you say you had 10 people in your group and you have 10 math questions to go over, and you each do one math question, and you quickly do your homework, well, that saves you some time, but that doesn't teach you very much. Don't shortchange your learning. You can't shortcut learning. Let me put it that way. You can't do it. Learning is like growing crops, for a farmer. You can't skip over certain processes. So to truly learn, you have to put in the time and effort. I never worked in a group. I always worked alone. There are things that are good about a group. And one is if you are struggling with something and you need other people to help explain it to you. Now, it might be struggling with English, for example. And so then you get together with other people, and one person understood, somebody else didn't understand. Well, that you can kind of compare notes and figure out what did the professor say. So it's good for students who are taking classes in English for whom it is not their first language. So that can be helpful. It is also helpful if you're not as knowledgeable. If you're taking a math class and you're not good at math, then it's nice to be in a group where you have somebody can help explain it. So you kind of have a built-in tutor, or maybe several of them. That obviously is beneficial. So use them if it helps you, but make sure you do it strategically. Don't do it to be lazy. That's the worst thing. Worst reason to do a group is to be lazy. I can see I don't have anything up here. Not that I have anything valuable to put up here at this point, I guess, but I still want to have a graphic up there anyway. Okay, so don't use groups to be lazy. Use them to be beneficial. On this second presentation, a couple of ideas on that. Getting to know your professors is really important, particularly in your major. I have done letters of recommendation and stuff with students not in my major, students that I got to know and kind of built a friendship, whatever, or with students that I only gave one class to, but they were somehow outstanding, not always necessarily because they were the best students, but they tried hardest. One of the groups taught us that to get the best grade, you should be sitting in the front. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is not to get distracted by other things if you're sitting in the back. One, so that you can definitely hear the professor. Another is so that you can get to know the professor. You get to understand them better, and you maybe come up and talk to them a little bit. Professors are not, they wouldn't be professors in most cases. They would not be professors if they didn't like students. There are some professors who I think maybe don't like students. That are just nerds, basically. They didn't know what else to do, so they got a PhD and decided to teach. There are some professors like that, but I think most professors actually like teaching, and they actually like their students. And so if you will build a relationship with them, it can be extremely valuable. The mentor option is a valuable one, and it doesn't always mean a professor doesn't always mentor just somebody who's a good student, but a student who's trying really hard. I'm thinking about some of my students in Kazakhstan, and I would say of the students that I'm closest to and have mentored the most, one of them was not a communications student. He was an international relations student. But he worked part-time at a TV station, and when he got done with his international relations degree, he found out he could make more money in TV than he could in the foreign service. And so he had taken one course, but he had been an excellent student in that one course. And he had tried really hard, and he had talked to me quite a bit on a one-on-one basis. And so when he got this offer to work at a TV station full-time, even though he didn't have a degree in communications, he had to come to me and he said, can you teach me how to be a reporter? Because that was not the class I taught him in, I think was PR, I believe. And it was not how to be a news reporter. And so he had never taken a course in how to be a news reporter. But here he was accepting a job that required him to do news reporting. And so I gave him some stuff to read, and then we talked about it, and he's now in charge of a daily TV show that he has in charge of over 50 people under him. He's only, what would he be? He's not more than 27, maybe 26 years old, and he's overseeing a very large budget with lots of people under him and so forth. And so that's a case where I mentored and would have definitely, anytime he wanted a letter of recommendation, I'd certainly give it to him because he was so attentive and so excited about what we were talking about and so forth. I remember another student who was definitely not the best student, but she had the most passion of any of the students I had my first year in Kazakhstan. So that was 10 years ago now. But she was in communications because she had a message. She wanted to make a difference in the world. And it was obvious her passion was really strong. She was not the best student, but a person with passion, that kind of their passion aligns with the passion of the professor, is going to be somebody the professor is going to be willing to mentor. And so if you show passion about a subject and your professor has the same passion, that's an ideal mentorship. You might even offer to help free of charge. Maybe be kind of like his assistant. He doesn't have an assistant. You might offer to be his assistant for nothing. Just say, I can afford a couple of hours a day to be your assistant. Would that be of value to you? Now you have a mentor for life for sure. If you do that and do a good job for him and are dependable for him. So mentorships are very important, as are letters of recommendation. I still write letters of recommendation for students that I had, 10 years ago. And so they're now going into grad school or something. You need a reference for that. And I make a point of giving very good letters of recommendation. A lot of people come to me, I feel kind of odd, like maybe I shouldn't be doing it, but there's some students that come to me simply because I gained a reputation of being a good recommendation writer. So I don't know if that's the right way. Let me put it this way. I'd do a lot better job for somebody if they really have been somebody that showed passion, if they are somebody who worked really hard. I don't care if they got an A, but if they worked hard, showed passion, was somewhat friendly to me, so he got to know me, then that person I would probably, I would write a letter of recommendation for, even if I was a little bit hesitant about their skills. It may not be as strong a letter as I would write for the best student, obviously, but I would probably, especially if they showed passion and they showed hard work, I would emphasize that, because that is really of great value to somebody who receives that letter. If they know that this person has passion and is willing to work hard and is dedicated, then they won't care quite as much about whether they got straight A's, because the passion and dedication go a long ways in this in the real world. I guess the last thing, talking some more, following up on the public speaking part that our last speaker is talking about, it really is one of the reasons why I do require presentations in class, is because that will probably be what sets some of you apart and helps you become executives, and those of you who will never be executives. If you can make a good presentation, then that will set you apart. I remember, I may have said this early in the course, I don't remember for sure, but I remember when I was 14 years old, I heard a speech by Ronald Reagan. At that time, he was just a kind of what they call a Class B actor. He was a good actor, but not a great actor. He didn't win any Academy Awards ever. He was a pleasant, he would always be somebody you liked. He didn't play any, I think maybe once he played a role where he was the bad guy, but in most of the cases, his roles on movies were always the nice guy. He was just the star of the show sometimes, but they weren't, again, great movies. Sometimes comedies, stuff like that. But he was pleasant. And he became very well known, but he was not known to be a politician. But he happened to support one presidential candidate, and he talked the candidate, he offered to speak on behalf of that candidate. So when I was 14 years old, I listened to Ronald Reagan explaining why people should vote for Barry Goldwater for president. And Barry Goldwater lost badly. So it didn't do any good for Barry Goldwater. But his speech on behalf of Barry Goldwater is now one of the top 25 speeches ever given in American history, according to an association of rhetoric professors and professionals. And because of that, because he took that opportunity and he spoke on national TV and national radio on behalf of Barry Goldwater, he suddenly became, basically he got a whole bunch of fans like me. I still remember that speech. And that was a long time ago for me. 14 years, that'd be about 54 years ago for me. But I still remember the impact that speech had on me. And consequently, because it was so powerful and so strong, people pushed him into politics then. And so he then ran for governor of California, was a good governor of California, but it took him from then, that was in 1964 when he gave that speech, and it was, 1980, I think. So it was almost, it was closing in on 20 years later when he was already a fairly old man before he became president of the United States. And was a very good president of the United States, by the way. I'm just making my point is that one speech changed his destiny. And it actually changed the destiny of the world, because he's the one that then became friends with Gorbachev and supposedly ended the Cold War. I don't know if it's ended yet or not, but at least temporarily ended the Cold War. It's a reason why Kazakhstan, for example, where I was teaching, is a free nation. It's after that the Soviet Union disintegrated and each of those former Soviet republics became free countries. So Ronald Reagan, one speech changed history, not just, it didn't do anything. His original purpose was to change history and get Barry Goldwater elected. In that, he failed. But what he didn't fail at was attracting people's attention as a great speaker and a great idealist of freedom. And that made him President of the United States nearly 20 years later. It was a fairly long trip to get there. But one speech can do it. It can do it for you too. As I said, you get into an organization and you get a chance to do a presentation. That's when you become executive material if you do a good job. If you stand out, if you take advantage of that opportunity, one good speech can make the difference in your life. So prepare well. One idea on that, I know we're right out of time, but one thing that they point out for really, really good speakers is how to create sound bites. You know what a sound bite is? A sound bite is kind of crystallizing your ideas in very, very short sentences that if there were a TV camera around, there may not be, but if there were a TV camera around, that's probably what they'd show in the nightly news. If you have a really good sound bite that because it's something that they can, if it encapsulates what you're trying to talk about, then in very few words, they can create a video and put you on the news. And in just a few words, a few seconds, it summarizes what you want to talk about. So a sound bite, but a sound bite's not just for TV, although that's an important reason if you're in the public light at all. But it's also for memory. If somebody learns to add sound bites, in other words, every so often in their speech, summarize what the important point and do it in 5 words, and do it and make those 5 words somewhat clever or powerful, those are the 5 words people are going to remember. And so if you can put through and think about sound bites, and I'm not good at that myself, I have to admit that. That's what the reason why I'm talking about is I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking how I should be working on sound bites better. Because I have been in politics, I've been around people that are excellent with sound bites. And boy, the TV flocks to people like that. So if you have any political interest, learn to speak in sound bites. And that doesn't mean every sentence is a sound bite, but every so often you do a sound bite to summarize what you're talking about that people can remember, very short sentence. This is what I'm talking about. That's one reason I think why you see a lot of videos, and I include some in this class, where they say, the top 10 ideas from so-and-so. Well, what they're doing is in essence, usually they've come up with a sound bite for each of those top 10 things that person, thought. And so that's one reason why top 10 lists are good, is that they usually start off with a sound bite. That usually at least, even if the person didn't say the sound bite, the person organizing the material and creating the top 10 is themselves creating a sound bite for them, so to speak. But the best ones are ones where public speakers are actually saying, here are my top, like one I will have you listen to, or I can't remember, it's 5 or 10, somebody who used to work with Steve Jobs is telling the things that the most important things he learned from Steve Jobs. And he starts off with a sound bite, and then he goes into detail. And that sound bite is really important. So that's one reason why, when people who use this top 10 approach, it's effective because they're creating a sound bite right off the bat, saying something clever or whatever that encapsulates what they want to say, and then they detail it out, and it becomes quite good. That's obviously not the only way to speak, but that's one reason why they use that technique, is to actually consciously create sound bites. Okay, well, we're after time. Thank you, and have a good weekend.